Hey everybody, Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols here with another Tactical Fitness Report, and we are going to discuss today all the different ways which you can screw up your Spec Ops journey before you even start your Spec Ops journey. And, basically talk about the attrition that is occurring recently, but has occurred all throughout history.
Yeah,
So I was hadn't told you this. This is my 30th year anniversary from graduating buds. July 2nd of this year will be my buds graduation 30 years ago. So I can tell you over the 30 years that I have been watching and listening and part of this community that, you're going to have 75 to 85% attrition rate just about every single class. And to the point, the community knows that if they need 250 SEALs in a year, they're going to bring over 1,000 people in to get that number, because that's a typical attrition rate zone, right? So I guess we can start this one off, Jeff, by maybe let's take a candidate's journey, like before he goes into get medically qualified, goes through MEPS, and then gets into boot camp and prep. And then we talk about, because that right there alone, just that little segment probably cuts out half of the people who want to join the community in the first place. Like, a lot of people don't even get to day one of Spec Ops training because they haven't even made it through day one of Bud's prep.
Yeah.
Some of that's fault of their own, some of it's no fault of their own. So let's kind of break that down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's like the first step to look at is like we have to just, if anyone's going to have a conversation about going down this road, I think the first thing is like you're gonna run into a whole bunch of information, because people are initially going to Google Buds training something or other, and first thing people get inundated with is the clickbait, like the fantasy of it. The failure rate will show up, like how difficult it is, and not all this controversy before you actually get to the point of training. Yeah. So I think that's the big thing that we need to like step aside for a minute and go, okay, all that stuff is what it is, and it's not going to change. And the more you dig in, the more you're going to realize that that's the way it's always been. Like that's what Stu's saying. Like this has always been the case. Okay, so I think that we just, as a society, yes.
Got your own air show out there,
right? Yeah, as a society, we get, it's like some years we hear about all these shark attacks, but when you look at the big picture, you're like, well, it was only 2 more than last year. Like, so, like, why am I saying this? We get a lot of inquiry and a lot of different conversation, a lot of different candidates. Some candidates want to be spoon-fed everything. Some candidates obviously have done the homework, and some guys have done a ton of homework, right? So I think that that's the thing is, the serious statement is, if you're going to do this, do your homework, look into it. Don't be demystified by the grandeur of the failure, because it's always been that way and it's supposed to be, guys. That's my point. It is a deselection course, and that's the beauty. There's comfort in that. The comfort in the fact that a lot of people make it through. Guys get through the programs using good training. So that's the point. Yes, it's supposed to be hard, but with very difficult selection, we accommodate that difficult selection with good training, and that's what we offer.
Very good point. So let's do this. Let's take a kid, and this came as an email, a young man who was trying to go to Buds, goes to MEPS, and he gets disqualified for something. Might be vision, might be color blindness, might be sickle cell anemia, whatever it is. It may be some kind of issue that he can't get a waiver for,
right,
and his Spec Ops dreams are finished. So you may think, right, there are other branches of service that may not
that'd be the first
strict
step, right? If you're in the Navy and you get disqualified for vision, maybe your heart is set on being a SEAL, or really it's just really ultimately it's just your heart is set on serving. So like what Stu is saying, maybe it isn't the Navy, because we have both seen examples of disqualifying in the Navy, and then they're getting accepted into Army SF.
Yep.
So just that, I think that Stu and I agree that's probably the first step. Like, the sky isn't falling, maybe a big road bump, but is a branch of service change an option? And it likely is.
Yeah, very often. I mean, unless it's like you get the final word that says no military branch is going to accept you because of this condition.
Yeah. Or no special operations is going to accept you because you have, like, you can't pass the lung decompression stuff or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, you can serve, but on your military special operations, that might disqualify you for things, diving in altitude. So yeah,
absolutely. But there are cool jobs within that same branch too that still serve with the spec ops units. Like, how many guys at your team did you have that were cryptologists?
Yeah.
You had special boat guys.
The direct support, we
intel
call them,
guys.
like, so what you're calling, like, there's a direct support, we'll call it entourage, really, of very specialized, skilled individuals across the Navy, like from, like you're saying, crypto, language, electronic surveillance stuff. There's all these experts attached to us. And that was fascinating because, you know, like, there is this little, like, big brother, little brother syndrome across kind of the Navy and spec war. And, like, just because guys want to be SEALs or don't want to be, or whatever. I'm not trying to be any sort of, like, we're cool guys, but when the command that I was at my last 8 years or so, all those augmentees, like, super professional, like, they wanted to be that job.
Yeah.
And we accepted them as, yes, you're a professional, we need you, and this is the extent we're going to use you. And they were awesome. They were fantastic.
Yeah. So once again, your spec ops service is not over just because you can't get into buds.
Yeah.
You know, another one too, let's just say the military says, nope, you can't do it. You know, other ways to serve in law enforcement, firefighters. I've had guys, you know, unable to get into the military that became big city police departments. They became their SWAT team guys. You know, they got their law degree and became bigwigs in the police force. Went on to federal law enforcement. I mean, just so many different opportunities that are still available, you know, if you are wanting to serve in those, you know, in that capacity.
Because, like, what you guys, like, I think it's hard for guys that are driven and then get into this position of, like, hey, you got disqualified because you're colorblind or something, right? You have this individual that his or her life, really, when they look back, has been one of kind of service, right? They've served as an athlete or served in a community, like in 4-H or whatever, like really serve. And so they are hard set on being a SEAL, for example, and then that's kind of taken away from them. It's not that different than, like, when a lot of us service members, like, we have to leave service without, like, there's this real moment of, like, what the heck? It's real scary because we get it. You put a lot of your eggs in that basket, and you should, given the seriousness of these jobs, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not one to say, hey, like, if you want to be a SEAL, you put as many eggs in that basket as you can, like, because it deserves it, that attention. So it's scary for people. So we understand, like, going for it, but you have to, right? And that's the point, is you have to go for it at some point.
Right. So anyway, this is the category of no fault of your own medical issues that screwed up your your future goals. Now, there are several next things I'm going to discuss that are completely your fault, right? And your lack of preparation, right? And this is still in the recruit phase. So if you're in the recruit phase and you pass the PST, you get the nod, you get the ship date, that's all great. But then you go through 10 weeks of boot camp. Now they added an extra couple weeks, by the way, just to make you even more out of shape. So you go 10 weeks of boot camp, and then you're going to eventually take a PST at Bud's Prep. They're just going to fly you out to Coronado, and you'll go through Bud's Prep now. And if you fail that PST, your days are done. I mean, you're going to be in a process of getting out of Coronado and finding a new job. I mean, that is what is happening right now, and it's happening to hundreds of people, every year. Just that one little failure, because you didn't take the PST seriously enough to really crush it, even after some phase of deconditioning. You still couldn't, you could not crush it after that phase of deconditioning. That is where so many people's Spec Ops dream end on day one of prep.
Yeah, they way underestimate the level of deconditioning that they're likely to encounter, especially if the training they did leading up to boot camp was, we'll just say, wasn't optimal, wasn't what they really needed. Like, they were kind of training a way that they've always trained and thinking, oh, I'll get in shape in this duration that I've got time. And part of me goes, that's a real failure on whoever has mentored them or given them advice, whatever their position was. I think that's a real failure, because the people that at this point being naive to the process,
there's no
seems
excuse.
Just like a real lack of, it's like a real complacent thing at this point.
There's no excuse to being naive to this process. There's no excuse to underthinking this process. There's all the excuses in the world.
Especially with all of us talking about it, right?
Yeah, there's all the reasons in the world to overthink it right now.
Right.
Because there's just so much out there.
Stu and Jeff just been nuking it to death for 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. Where's your excuse, people? Come on.
Yeah. Underthinking it is no excuse. Under preparation is really no excuse. If you go into it unprepared, you just did not do enough homework and realize the type of condition you need to be in and how long that can often take to get into that kind of condition, to where you can crush a PST on a bad day, on months without activity, while you're sick, because guess what? You may have to take that PST when you're sick, and it's going to count one way or another. You continue on or you're done. And that sucks.
And that's all. I mean, we go on and on about, like, there's, we leave all these breadcrumbs over time. And like, this is why the big picture, which is why Stu and I say your timeline of training is so important. If you respected the process, you should have probably had a year, unless you were like Stu and I've experienced the rarity of like an all-American wrestler. Probably doesn't need a whole lot of time unless there's been an injury or he needs to drop some weight. But there's rarities and outliers, and that's not what we're talking. So,
yeah,
we really are talking about the bulk of people. And it's like, Stu and I may have been outliers when we came through, but that was, we became outliers through our work, not through our,
wasn't God given.
Wasn't happenstance. So that's what we're saying. What are Stu and I offering? We're not offering any quick fixes. We're not offering, here's 3 tips for guaranteed success. We're offering a point of education, and we're seeing if you're willing to put the work in, because that's the one thing we're sure will work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's move on. So let's say, okay, you get by with the PST, and Bud's Prep, you get through Bud's Prep, you pass the advanced level test that you have to do in order to get into phase 1, which is a 4-mile timed run. Probably have to do a 2-mile swim with fins, do an obstacle course. You already did the PST. That's typically it. I mean, there may be some other things that you have to, test out, maybe a tread or something like that, but typically those are the big ones that can definitely halt your progress again before it even starts. So you have to have, your work in that Bud's Prep program in order to reach those final standards And those final standards can't be foreign to you. You know,
Yeah.
you've had to already do that long before boot camp, you know, to be at that kind of level. And then it's easier to build back up to it versus recreate
Yep.
the process to get there.
Yep. And we've come across, you kind of hear there's like a little buzz about, like, there's still people that will talk about, like, well, I'll even, you know, I'll get to buds, I'll be a good dude. They, you know, they may get rolled, but like, you start hearing people that also in their back of their head, they're like accepting the fact, like, well, I'll figure it out when I get there. And if I get rolled, I get rolled. It's like, whoa, like, we have gotten to a point, maybe it's, I mean, I don't know. I never experienced that level, I guess. Let me rephrase that. The people that I heard speak in that sort of, with that sort of like, you create this subconscious escape route, right?
Oh yeah.
The self-negative talk,
that's all it
right?
is. Yeah.
Everyone I heard talk like that just were the first to go.
Oh yeah. Within a week, at least.
And so,
yeah,
like, that's the thing is, like, I think that's the maturing process we're talking about through all these processes. Like, you guys don't understand, it's relentless. Like, from the time that you make that decision, and if you honestly pursue it, and then you join the military with honest pursuit, you get into buds with honest pursuit, it's relentless. So you can't afford to go, well, if I get hurt, I'll get healthy. Then I'll ask Stu and Jeff. Right? It's like, no, like, it's those people that are relentless from the beginning. We're not having these conversations in Hell Week.
Oh no.
And if you're having these conversations with yourself, you're not ready. Prepare. And how do you get yourself ready mentally? You prepare.
Oh yeah.
It's like when
absolutely.
your tooth hurts so damn bad, but you don't want to go to the dentist. But eventually you're like, I don't care how bad that drill and that needle's gonna hurt. Drill this sucker out. At some point, if you're willing to put the work, you're like, I don't care what it takes.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. Let's take it. You made it through Bud's prep, and now you are about to start first phase. Now, the first 4 weeks of first phase, that's 3 weeks prior to Hell Week, and that is also Hell Week. Those 4 weeks will see 98% of the attrition of your class
in that 4 weeks.
In that 4 weeks. So you really have to be built to endure the beating that is those 4 weeks, because you're going to lose, you know, I don't know, maybe 25, 50 a week, depending on the number that started.
Right.
Like we started with 120, and I think we were down to in the 40s when we started Hell Week. And back then Hell Week was the 5th week. So you got through all the life saving and treading and all that stuff before Hell Week. And then some reason they moved it to 4th week. But anyway, yeah, we lost. And by that time we finished with 20 something, you know, that secured Hell Week, and then went on to graduate 28 total. And that's roll-ins and everything. So
yeah. Ours wasn't too dissimilar. Like, because if you look at the percentage, guys, everyone like looks at these percentages like they're new. They're not. Like, my class was 188 to start, and at the end of Hell Week there was 22 originals. We graduated 44, so 22 people got rolled in to the original 22. So it's these numbers. Like, and I was a summer, basically my Hell Week was in May, right? Or April. April. My Hell Week was in April. I got my trident in May. So it's not, the water is never warm there, but also it wasn't, you know, January, it wasn't February. Yeah. So, you know, I think it all comes out in the wash is the point. Like every couple years, everyone, like the Navy SEALs become a story, and everyone's like mystified by the experience like that's in text. And you're like, you and I are like, this is kind of just we relive it.
Yeah.
We've just been talking like, hey, maybe we should redo some of our old YouTube videos. Like, it's been years, you know. So
same story.
It has. It's like, hey, Stu, has your Buds program changed? Like, no, why would it? Buds hasn't changed. Yeah.
a good point. Hey, let's do this. In those 4 weeks, here's where you see most of the people not make it. One, obvious DOR. You know, they say,
Yeah.
you know, this isn't for me, whatever reason. That's a big chunk of that. The other one is injured. And if you have performed well, you get injured, you might be rolled. If you don't, if you've had some failures and you get injured, your chances are you're not going to be rolled and you're out of the program.
Yep.
Yeah,
I would say like this set, probably like along with quitting, the second, if I were to, this is Jeff Nichols' educated guess. I would say the second biggest reason why people don't make it through is they show up overtrained. And so they're, well, I'm saying show up to boot camp overtrained. And so either they go through a process of like recovery and deload kind of, and they heal, and then they go to Bud's prep, and depending on their training, it either enhances it or makes them worse. Like I just think, because we see so many common injuries, right?
Yeah.
It's the commonality of a shin splint that I go, so is it overtraining running or is it undertraining of finning? And I'm like, I don't know. So I think that it's kind of the combination of the finning plus the soft sand running, that overtraining aspect that's a killer.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there are two combinations of getting injured. There's the getting injured of, once again, horrible accident, you break your ankle,
Right.
Step in a hole, blow your ACL, whatever. Those things happen. And then there's the overuse injuries that are probably the biggest majority of that, for sure. Yeah. That are people are just coming in kind of broken, and then all it takes is just a few weeks of really high volume and they're over the top. And now those tendonitis, bone, fractures, stress fractures start appearing. And that's a pure
and the
sign
combination of that is like, Stu, like most of these guys have just really focused on the concentric. And where do we see guys really falling off?
Yeah,
coming down from the ropes, coming down from the slide for life, coming down for the cargo nets, coming down from the dirty name. You see what I'm saying? Like, these guys, their nervous systems are pegged. If all they've ever done is isometrics and concentric stuff, that's where you see the injury. That's where you see motor function loss. Then you see injury occur. It typically always precede, and that's what Bud's is, especially in that soft sand. It's taking away your ability to effectively absorb force in a linear fashion that your bones want. Now taking that away, we've added fatigue, we've added cold, we've added a change of diet, we've added this mental confusion, and now the body is going to do what it's going to do unless you've been there.
Yeah.
Through maturity, heartbreak, all the stuff we talked about, right?
True. I'd say the other one, a big chunk of it, is also failing to meet the standards, failing 4-mile timed runs, failing 2-mile swims, failing obstacle courses, drown proofing.
Yeah. I think
all
that
those
the big thing too, swimming is a killer. I think the big thing with swimming is people undervalue their need to be able to swim straight.
Oh yeah.
It's
definitely a technique.
People are great in the pool, man. You put them in the ocean. The great equalizer is that body of water that has really moved a lot.
Yeah. And, you just have to come up and take a look, just do little peeks every 5 strokes, make sure you're swimming straight, because it doesn't take long to be.
There's no lane lines
veering off. It was really funny. The other day we were swimming out here at Chesapeake Bay, and one of the guys had his back to the shore, and it's literally 3 feet deep for 50 yards out there, right? And so you can just stand up if you're having issues. And so he's swimming and he's not paying any attention to where he's going. He was literally within about 50 yards, swimming 90 degrees out from the shore, right? So we were just parallel to the shore,
locked in his stroke. Yeah,
parallel to the shore, and he just took a right. And I just sitting there watching him. I was wondering, one, when he's going to figure it out, but two, I'm wondering how long will it take to make a complete circle?
Right. He wouldn't even know, right? Exactly. Yeah,
He
yeah.
figured it out before he made a complete circle, but I was just thoroughly entertained by it. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I would
was
say that's those are the top ones. And swimming, that's it. Swimming straight.
yes.
And it's hard to learn in a pool. It's hard to learn in a 25-meter pool.
Yeah.
Really
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
understand that. So
There's no
yeah,
black lines at the bottom of the water.
no. And we're trying, we've been through this. It's easy for us to kind of joke about it, but it's now we can joke about it and tell you the truth about how to prepare.
Yeah. The other two options, I guess, for not making it through, and this, you probably won't see this one in first phase very much, but you will see it in second and third phase, and that's a safety violation. So safety
Yeah.
violations also can screw you up, especially when you're dealing with equipment, diving, shooting, explosives. Yeah, I can't think
Yeah, I
of any.
imagine isn't probably pool comp still like the second big milestone? Is that
Yeah.
still the
Yeah.
thing? And I don't think that the standards on that, they can't loosen them because they're not about combat, they're about life saving.
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine they would ever loosen that standard.
Yeah, it's about following procedures.
It's it. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Staying calm in a place you're not meant to stay calm. That's all it is. Yeah.
Calm, follow procedures. You're good to
You'll
go.
be
The other,
good.
the last one that I can think of, Jeff, is just admin drops, which I'm not even sure what that means. To be honest.
Yeah, I think it's the test taking and things like that.
Yeah.
I wonder. My time, I reflect back and I'm like, how many tests did I take? Like, second phase, but like being a college graduate, like in math, I loved dive physics. I thought it was great. So some people I know struggle with it, understandably. I can't spell for anything and I'm 43. So I'm not making fun of anyone, but I don't remember there being any sort of really intense admin stuff. So maybe there's more now.
Other than like missing a muster or that kind of admin stuff.
It
Admin,
could be kind of like fall into that peer side. Like, is he showing up on time? Is he a good teammate? I imagine that's probably in that admin side.
Getting in trouble out in town, that's an admin type thing.
You betcha. So, yeah, admin separation. You bet. You're right. That's what all the other stuff.
Yeah,
the life stuff. Yeah, the Navy life stuff. Okay, we'll call it. Okay,
maturity issues.
And there you go. Like that goes down to that. Like we keep going down to emotional maturity. Like I wouldn't consider myself super emotional mature at 23, but I was more than I was
at 18. Yeah. I definitely had some growing
to
do at 22 as well. But at the same time,
like emotionally right now, if I could like hijack a 23-year-old body, I would have a lot of fun and buds.
Yeah.
Now, like really, it would be like, okay, this is torture. I can do this, but that's just because it's like watching a guy that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu that's 85. You're like, just smooth, and you're like, that's why you do it, right? It's like why Andre Arlovski at 43 just won again. Like, man, at 23 wins, he's got the most wins in history at 43. It's like it's just you get that old man wisdom and strength, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, and the other one is needs of the Navy. All right. This is the last one. And this is probably the most recent and probably the main reason why everybody's up in arms about buds is that, they don't need as many SEALs as they typically do every year. Right now, the community is actually overmanned, though. Because of the last 5 or 6 classes, this year group is actually undermanned. So they have been a little tougher with the attrition rate. But overall, if you look at the big picture, you're not talking about hundreds of SEALs not being made. It's like 10, 20, in that zone. But it does add up, and eventually, there's going to be the other reaction that occurs that, hey, we need more SEALs, and you'll see the spigot open up a little more, and people tend to make it through. I don't think either one's harder or easier. I think there's been some, I guess, stories about, just, all the things that we listed are just capital letters, like really everything has teeth. Whereas there may be situations when they need people where they handle it without a separation, they handle it with more punishment or restriction or things like that.
Yeah, it's what ends up happening, like kind of where you see a manning thing kind of really impact an operator, I believe, is like they'll never limit the number of spec operators coming in. Like they may advertise a little bit less, but they're never gonna cut it off at the spigot like it buds. What they do is when you get into teams, there's less sniper billets. There's less opportunity to go to the command beyond. Like it becomes harder to get to those further selections. Like it becomes harder to become a free fall jump master because there's fewer, because they're not going to advance people, and you need like free fall jump master to really advance to an E6 probably. So that's where it becomes real competitive internally.
Yeah.
And it's same for the officers, because now you're going to graduate the same number from the academy essentially, or OCS, but there's still only, instead of 6 billets, there's only 4. And so now even the officer side have to become even that much higher performers to even get that spot. Like that year group, there might be 3 for OCS, but the following year there might only be 2.
Yeah,
It's
and they've reorganized the way the regular SEAL teams are structured as well. And it's going to come down to the people that are getting the OIC billets, the AOIC billets, the platoon chief and the LPO. There's actually a screening for that. And there's always kind of been, it's like you want your better guys to get those jobs, but now it's an official
there's formalities. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think my last thing is like, society only kind of sees SEALs as this like door kicking, shoot the guns kind of stuff. But what this community, what the civilians don't realize is how many job leadership positions are all over the globe, right? And like, there's a lot of jobs out there internally to see, like who do you think runs the sniper schools and breacher schools, right? Like they're all SEALs typically, or EODs. So there's a lot of places that SEALs and other spec war facilitate training. So like that's also when you're overmanned, it doesn't mean you're underworked.
Yeah. And something too, since they've gotten rid of the contracted mentor program, while they're recruits, and now it's just run by scout team and recruiters, they are talking about making some of those jobs active duty SEALs that are regional, mentor facilitators.
Like your MOS type situation. It's like and I think you still have to have some regional coverage and things. And I think they'll get it sorted out. Like they realized what was before just wasn't gaining the traction they had hoped, I think. And I think it's good. Change is good in this regard. Let's say, because the community is not so big, right? It's not 200,000 troops, right? With its size, I think they can make a good change quickly.
Once again, Jeff, we always say to people, what is the number one thing we say to people? Be patient.
Yeah.
Because the military, Navy, and the SEAL community, they are going through change as well. There's not this constant deploying to war-torn areas of the world. It is completely changed. It is making those changes, and they're working through all of that, right? It's like watching an aircraft carrier make a 180-degree turn, right? It's going to be a long, slow process before it actually gets there. And I think, the best thing that I would do with folks right now that are in the process of preparing for such a job is to say, just be patient, and just kind of ride out the next several months, maybe even a year and a half, and see how those changes have fully been implemented by then.
Yeah. Now is a
And
good time, I think, to go in, because now is a great time to go to these schools and acquire skills, because it's only a matter of time before those skills will be called upon to be used. Like, that's the way I see it. It's like, now's the time to get training. Now you can focus on it. It's not that training was rushed for us. It was a different level of necessity.
yeah,
Now you
you
can
guys had
really
training, and then
focus.
you deploy and you get tested. I mean,
Yeah, it's like now you can, like, I think you're going to see a lot of development of the craft,
yeah,
of the 10 years of work is now going to get turned into this really kind of unique, beautiful system that's efficient. And I think
oh yeah,
that's where we're at.
yeah.
So
And got to remember, I mean, it's not a lot different than the 90s before 9/11. I mean, there's a reason why, the SEAL and other special ops units went into post 9/11 mode so quickly and could be in Afghanistan in October of 2001 kicking ass, because of the amount of professionalism and training that they were able to hone and perfect during those years of the 90s when they
yeah,
weren't
when it had nothing
necessarily
to do
using it.
but train, right? Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like, we were the byproduct of the generation before me training their face off. And then we turned into, hey, you're going to train your face off. And then, like, oh, by the way, we got this thing called GWAT on the back end that we got to go do. So, it's, no, I'm not a morbid guy in that sense too much anymore, but I guess growing up in the United States, it'd be, like, join the military, serve, because probably in the next 20 or 30 years, it's going to be called to be used.
You never know. I mean, it's
Who knows?
craziness.
Hopefully not, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's craziness out there regardless. And,
Yeah.
you know,
That's the beauty. Is like, we don't have to talk tactics, man. That's the beauty. I get to talk lifting weights and keeping
yeah.
healthy. Like, it's nice to not have to have that emotional stake into, like, military tactics. Like, leave that for them. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm same way. I've never been too much into that,
I
other
like
than,
lifting. We'll stick with that. I mean, I love
yeah,
to shoot.
lifting,
Catherine and I are
running,
going to go shoot
swimming.
today, but, like,
Yeah.
that's more for really for enjoyment than anything else.
Yeah. And it's a skill that's perishable that is always wise to, keep up.
You bet.
So, all right. So, Jeff, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, Instagram is where you can find me at Jeff CSCS is my handle. If you need to reach out to us about training, whatever, it's performancefirstus.com. Send an email at info@performancefirstus.com, and we will get back to you.
Yes, same here. Instagram, Stu Smith 50 and StuSmithFitness.com. I do have one recommendation for everybody. I don't know if you've read this one yet, Jeff. Highly recommend it. By Water
Oh wow,
Beneath,
who's the author?
by Water Beneath the Walls, Ben Milligan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know
He's
Ben.
a SEAL. He's a SEAL. One of the best history books I've ever read. And
Nice.
I learned stuff about Spec War that I had no idea.
Huh? He was a Bud's class before me. Yeah.
Not only did you learn about the formation of SEALs, but you learned about formation of all the other Spec Ops groups. This is
Nice.
all pre-World War II type level stuff.
Nice.
There was a time in the military where they were like, why are Navy people going on shore?
Hey, I encountered that. No shit, man. And I had an Army major ask me once in the Philippines, of all places. I was like, there's 1,701 islands that make up the Philippines. So it's like, it kind of made sense that the Navy was here, but we were on land. And I had a major ask me one. He's like, why is the Navy, like, he was so confused. He's like, the Navy doesn't have a land unit. And I was like, pardon me, sir? He's like, what are you? And I go, a SEAL. He goes, what's a SEAL? An Army major said that. I had no kidding, had an Army 2-star say that to me in Afghanistan. He goes, we were in a briefing and he goes, why is the Navy here? Like, there's no ocean here.
What's funny about what you're saying is this was all answered before and during World War II.
Oh man.
About that and how it formed and the needs of the Navy, made it happen. It is really cool, but they were kicking ass as a Navy unit in Philippines, in China.
Nice. I'll dig into that for sure.
Yeah.
I can dig some
And
history.
they didn't know what to call each other. They were all like commandos, amphibious warfare.
Yeah.
They were coming up, and then finally,
I had no idea.
The cool thing about this book is they don't even mention the word SEAL until like chapter 11.
Awesome.
Right? It's like it hadn't even been in like a thought.
Yeah. Like people ask me, they go, "Hey, what's your favorite Navy SEAL movie?" I go, "The one that's called Navy SEAL and it's black and white from 1952." That's the that's it. Like Charlton Heston, I think, is the lead. And it's like when they basically when they went into slamming at UDT guys and blew up the Jap scullies essentially out on the Normandy coast. And it was like they left a sign for the Marines that it was that sort of fluff story. But yeah, it was great. Because no kidding, they had the old UDT had the old dive knives from out covered in axle grease. I was like, that's legit. Okay.
Oh yeah, that was badass. But there's some killer stories in there that just make you get goosebumps reading them. I mean, it's insane. Highly recommended. So
perfect. I'll dig in.
All right, folks. Until next time, Jeff, thank you so much for taking some time and doing this with us. And
you betcha.
I will get this to you later. Everybody check out Jeff's place at Performance First US or mine at Stu Smith Fitness, or both. We can definitely help you out as well, as we're a great tag team. We'll see you later.